I'd like to call this public hearing to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Schuster?
Present.
Mr. McAndrew?
Present.
Dr. Rothchild? Mr. Donahue?
Here.
Mr. Gaughan?
Here.
The purpose of said public hearing is to hear testimony and discuss the following. File of Council Number 78, 2021, approving and accepting the City of Scranton capital budget for the year 2022 pursuant to Section 904 of the city's Home Rule Charter.
Just waiting for the sign-in sheet. Mr. Coyne or Ms. Schumacher, did you sign in to speak? I did not. Okay, do any of you, or Mr. Shaw, did you sign in to speak? No, sir. Okay, thank you. Would anyone like to speak to the capital budget? Sure. And just for the record, Dr. Rothchild is in attendance at the public hearing. There are no speakers on the sign-in sheet. Would anyone like to speak to the capital budget? I already have it. It's okay. If you didn't sign in, you could just come up and speak. Yep. Just state your name and address for the record. Mm-hmm.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Darwin Shaw. My address is 615 Beach Street, Scranton, Pennsylvania, lifelong resident. Preferably, my questions aren't for the capital budget because they're not here today, like the department heads that I would like to speak to, preferably the mayor. I would like to know today, if you can, because this is a capital budget hearing, or next week, what is the proper steps that they plan on taking with Leech Creek and Leggett Creek and the flooding? Also, does...
Mr. Shaw, I'm sorry. This public hearing is very specific to the capital budget. Yes.
Yeah, no, I would like to, no, not right now. Would you like to say something?
Also, we have to put the microphone closer to your mouth.
Oh. Could you hear me now? There you go, wonderful. Would I be able to speak on if we can squeeze in helping out the school board in this previous budget order that we're coming up with, due to switching the payroll tax to the PPM tax, if I'm not saying that properly, because it's hectic on certain businesses, but we can tax a lot more and receive revenue, but there are going to be certain individuals that get hit dramatically if we cannot get that money.
Yeah. Again, this is only specific to the capital budget.
Yeah, no, I know.
But we will have, during the regular meeting, you'll have 5 minutes to speak to any city matters.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker?
Thomas Coyne, Manuka, C-O-Y-N-A. Just wanted to, in reflecting to this budget, I've seen a great increase in this budget on the bottom line, a nice percentage jump, and I'm not sure where the revenue is going to come from on the bottom line of that budget from the 21 to 22 year. We've had a tough year with getting revenue for the city, with businesses shut down, with taxation coming in. And I'm just a little bit concerned at the jump, that it's in one specific year and not spread out a little bit. I'm also concerned with the reduction in the IT department. I understand that from what it looks like, a lot of the resources are planned to be outsourced, so you no longer need a lot of technical assistance in there. But I am concerned knowing that outsourcing IT and support for laptops and computers and desktops that are across this entire city-owned properties takes a lot of legwork and takes a lot of time. It's not something that is easily done. And cost-effective-wise, it makes more sense for an IT staff within the city to actually have more revenue to do it internally than hire externally. I'm just concerned with the budget lines for IT that it is cutting it a little bit thin, even if we are reducing the total amount of expenditures because we're moving it to OpenGov as the outsourced platform. OpenGov is not going to come to your desktop and fix problems. They're not going to configure your computers and they're not going to help with day-to-day issues. That's what internal IT does. And I'm just concerned that by lowering the budget for the internal IT, you risk staffing. And when you lose qualified personnel in staffing, you wind up risking your network to internal vulnerabilities because virus protection and other security measures just aren't met because you don't have the quality people who are on staff to actually go out there and proactively deal with these issues before they actually hit. That's my only concern. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Coyne, just to address your concerns about the jump in 22 and 23, that's because some of the things in here, if they qualify for ARP money, the ARP money will be used. It won't be coming out of our general budget. If not, that will be spread out farther along.
Thank you.
So we're just waiting on the final rules for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address council on the capital budget?
Marie Schumacher. When I first saw this come out, I thought, what a shame that we have not, as a city, determined how the ARP money, the rescue part of it, not the recovery, but the rescue part that we have control of, was going to be spent. And it would have been nice if we had the parks study, and it would have been nice if we had the HRG stormwater. Would make things a whole lot easier. But then I found out when I started to dig into we've already apparently decided what the rescue money is going to be spent on, because almost every one of these projects that are highlighted use ARP money. And I don't know, ARP, sometimes it's the recovery money, I think, and I think it would have been nice if they had used the P word, which whenever it was, recovery or rescue. But going beyond that, Serenity project that's highlighted. Whatever happened to the meeting that we were supposed to get showing the total project that was intended up there? Somehow I missed it. But there are no funds in after 2023, so I would like to know if that means that it's totally completed, and if not, what is included in the next phase that's called in for 22. It just says for the next phase. So I would like to know what that is. And there used to be a revenue when it was being sold as something other than a police thing, being a territorial thing, it was going to be a revenue source. Now, reading this, it's just going to be open to anybody who wants to come and use it in the area. And I would like to know which it is. Are we going to seek revenue from those who are from out of the city borders, or are we going to just have anybody use it? City Hall itself, it states that the current budget is not, sorry, I can't see through, does not it does not live itself to the 21st century city government. But the dollars in here supposedly are for some renovations, and just for there's going to be a group of some kind decide what this 21st century facility is going to be, where it's going to be. Is it going to be bought? Is it going to be built? And if so, I don't know why there isn't something in a budget that goes out to 2026. I would think that would be something that the city would want to resolve and get moving on. And on the roof, it says there was an urgent repair in 2020, but there's money in there, it appears, for the roof, and I don't know if those were two separate problems with the roof. That would be nice to know, or if it's one and it's already fixed. There's no dollars in there for the relocation of the staff and the equipment during the renovations of this building, unless, of course, the new building is available. The salt storage, it would be nice to know how many satellites are included in the proposed budget. On the Weston Field main building, it would be nice to know how it is split between the foundation and the ARPA as far as funding. It says it's going to be funded by the Weston Foundation and ARPA, but it doesn't specify what the split is. That would be nice to know just for a, is this real kind of thing. The fire department. The funding for the new building, which is for Engine 10, really doesn't seem to have enough dollars to do what they say they're going to do. And on the hoses and the nozzle replacements, oh, I'm sorry.
You could finish your thought.
Okay, well, on that, it appears we're going to have to do an operating budget transfer this year because they are, I don't even know why it's in the capital budget, because it has to be done this year.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Hodowanitz?
Joan Hodowanitz, Scranton. When we first brought this on the agenda, I printed out the budget, and looking at the top cover sheet, which just gives the gross numbers from 2021 through 2026, I was surprised to see that some of the items like building and maintenance, fire, police, DPW, Parks and Rec, they had very specific numbers going all the way out to 2026. And then some of them, like LIPS, just kind of fell off the chart by 2023 and they're zeroed out. And IT, which I mentioned before, went from $936,000 this year to $155,000 next year, and then just a steep decline, $75,000, $55,000, $55,000, and $45,000. When you have your caucus with your department heads, it would be nice if you could get some feedback from them. I suspect that they did a lot of work on the 2022 portion of this budget. But in many cases, I think, someone didn't put too much effort into the out years. And I think you need to look at that. All of City Hall, all of its departments are heavily dependent upon information technology. Some of them have other hardware like vehicles and buildings and those kind of issues. But when you look at LIPS, for instance, last year it was 10,000, next year they're looking for 20,000, and it's zero for the rest of the budget. You know how many problems have been associated with LIPS in the last few years. And also, that's got to be a department that's very, very IT dependent for its record keeping, projections, data retrieval. $20,000 and then they fall off the cliff. That's making no sense. Now, maybe they just didn't have the time to address the out years. I don't know. And like Marie, I'm also very interested. I've been asking you several times since before August about when can you give us some feedback on the Serenity Center, all the money that's been invested to date, and then how much money is it going to be to bring that building to where you want it to be minus long-term maintenance, okay? So hopefully you'll be getting that scheduled in the near future, certainly before the budget process. And then some of these things, I don't know, I had a chuckle. Let's talk about City Hall. We are exploring setting up a fund through SAFDN where private donors could contribute towards rehabilitating and maintaining City Hall. Private donors. I would like a little explanation of, how you think that's going to work. Are we talking here bake sales and car washes, or like the diocesan annual appeal will have the City of Scranton Municipal annual appeal? I looked at that and I chuckled to myself, so maybe we could get some information. Certainly this building needs a lot of work. This building was neglected. It did not have the maintenance it should have had for decades, and hopefully that's corrected in the future. But private donors, you may have difficulty crossing the line with, the people who have deep pockets to give you money are many of the same people that are vendors to the city, and you don't want to cross that line. So, just a few things I would like if you could give us some information as you look at this, because I know the operating budget is 99% of your attention and your time. But the capital budget needs more than a one-year look down the road. You really do need to be looking 5 years. And IT, keep in mind, you know how fast hardware and software changes. You can't have 0, 0, 0, 0, for the IT department. That doesn't cut it. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address council on the capital budget? I'd like to have, if someone could make a motion to adjourn the public hearing.
Make a motion to adjourn the public hearing?
On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? The ayes have it. This public hearing is adjourned. Thank you. I'd like to call this public meeting to order. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silent reflection for our servicemen and women throughout the world, and also for those who have passed away in our community. Let us also take a moment of silence tonight for all of the people in our community, in our country, and around the world who have passed away and are suffering from the coronavirus. This pandemic has turned our world upside down, but we must remain hopeful and strong. We continue to pray for the doctors, nurses, researchers, and all medical professionals who seek to heal and help those affected and who put themselves at risk in the process. May they have protection and peace. Whether we are home or abroad, surrounded by many people suffering from this illness or only a few, let us stick together, endure together, mourn together, and in place of our anxiety, let us have hope and peace. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Schuster?
Present.
Mr. McAndrew?
Present.
Dr. Rothchild? Here. Mr. Donahue?
Here.
Mr. Gaughan?
Here. I would now like to call the members of the Providence United Presbyterian Church up to the front of the chambers. We are going to present them with a proclamation celebrating their 175th anniversary.
Here we go.
Okay, I'm going to read this proclamation into the record. I want to thank all the members of the Providence United Presbyterian Church for being here tonight. Okay. Whereas the Methodist faith was established in the area early in its settlement, The Presbyterians at the time worshiped with them until they decided that they wanted their own place of worship. And whereas on July 27, 1846, the citizens of Providence Village met, and it was voted upon at that meeting that a meeting house should be built under the control of the Presbyterian denomination. And whereas on August 19, 1846, an offer of land from N. Gottrell was accepted and a draft for a meeting house was adopted. The proposed building cost was $2,000. And whereas on October 5, 1846, the First Presbyterian Church of Providence, Pennsylvania was organized as the First Presbyterian Congregation in Scranton. Descendants of one of the original founders, William E. Gaughan, remain active in the church to this day. And whereas an application for a charter was signed and granted by the Luzerne County Court on January 5, 1847. On July 7, 1847, construction began on the first church, built on the corner of Church Avenue and Oak Street, completed in 1848 and dedicated on July 25, 1849. The first pastor was Reverend Joseph Barlow. Whereas a parsonage was built in 1862 and a lecture and Bible classroom were added to the building in 1869, this building housed the First Presbyterian Church of Providence until 1886, when the stone building in the 2000 block of North Main Avenue was completed and dedicated. The old church was sold, and in 1882, a lot was purchased from Ira Tripp for $2,250 to erect a new house of worship. And whereas in 1884, the parsonage built in 1869 was sold with the proceeds going to the cost of the new church building. In 1886, the congregation moved into the new church building at 2020 North Main Avenue and continued to occupy that building until the merger with Suburban Presbyterian Church in 1971. And whereas in 2008, a new church building was dedicated at 1145 Providence Road in Scranton, the congregation is a result of the merger of 4 different Presbyterian congregations that closed in past years. Now, therefore, be it resolved that on Tuesday, September 21st, 2021, Scranton City Council wishes to recognize the Providence United Presbyterian Church as they celebrate their 175th anniversary on October 4th, 2021, and for their work of spreading the good news of the gospel. Be it further resolved that this proclamation be made a permanent part of the record of this council as lasting tribute to Providence United Presbyterian Church. Thank you very much. And if you would like to speak, or Corey, you'd like to speak for a moment too. Thank you very much. Do you want to say a few words? Go ahead, sir. This gentleman's a pastor.
I'm Reverend Dr. Murray Thompson, currently serving as pastor of the Providence United Presbyterian Church, where for the past 4.5 years it's been an honor and a privilege to be among this particular manifestation of the Spirit and these people of God. If you think for just a moment what this represents, in and around the year the church was initiated and organized 175 years ago, that was the time frame when James Polk was President of the United States. It was also the time frame when, as all of you probably are aware, the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia was struck to celebrate the birthday of George Washington. And that was the year that the bell actually cracked. 175 years ago. This valley at that time was still considered to be a part of what was then known as the Connecticut Territory, still a part of the territory belonging to the Eastern Seaboard. When you think of that time frame and consider what was going on in these United States and in this valley, we have arrived at the point in God's time where, as you well know, we have people circling over us with satellites and space stations and rovers on the planet Mars. This represents that much time. It also represents an enormous amount of time, energy, intelligence, and imagination shared by this magnificent congregation who for all these years have pushed forward and witnessed to the gospel of Jesus Christ. In my humble opinion, they are to be applauded and celebrated during this particular time frame. And thank you very much. Thank you, Council. We sincerely appreciate your recognition today.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Congratulations.
Thank you. I would like to take a motion to take from the table resolution number 202, 2021.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor and a second to take from the table resolution number 202, 2021, and place it in seventh order for a final vote. This resolution was tabled at last week's meeting until our office could be provided with additional information about this grant to support the police to obtain accreditation. The information has been received and was added to the backup. On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved. Please dispense with the reading of the minutes.
Third order, 3A, correspondence received from the Department of Licensing and Inspections and Permits dated September 13, 2021. 3B, Lackawanna County Planning Commission Subdivision and Land Development Evaluation Report reviewed September 8, 2021. 3C, minutes of the Scranton Police Pension Commission meeting held August 18, 2021. 3D, minutes of the Non-Uniform Municipal Pension Board meeting held August 18, 2021. 3E, agenda for the Non-Uniform Municipal Pension Board meeting held September 15, 2021. 3F, minutes of the Composite Pension Board meeting held August 18, 2021. 3G, Controller's Report for month ending August 31st, 2021.
Are there any comments on any of the third order items? If not, received and filed. Do any council members have any announcements at this time?
I have one. The city is seeking volunteers to help create a bicycle pump track at Connell Park from October 6th through the 9th for 2 shifts per day from either 9 a.m. to noon or 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. For details or to sign up, please visit Anthracite Bicycle Coalition on Facebook or show up at the park at 800 Gibbon Street any day from October 6th through the 9th. Volunteers are encouraged to bring their own gloves and or shovels.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, I would just like to announce that the Scranton Fringe Festival this week is beginning. Fringe Under the Glass. They had started that version of their Fringe Festival last year with the pandemic, so it was a way to safely engage the community and in the arts. And so you can find out some more on ScrantonFringe.org and buy some tickets.
Anyone else? There will be a public caucus held next Tuesday, September 28th, 2021. There will be a public caucus held next Tuesday, September 28th, 2021 at 5 p.m. in council chambers with members of the Cognetti administration, Riley Associates, and the Department of Environmental Protection regarding the Meadowbrook Creek project. This is a long time coming. There's many neighbors. I know council members have questions, neighbors have questions. So they will be here next week to give us an update on this project and to answer any questions from council. And that will be at 5 p.m. Directly following that caucus, representatives from HRG will present council with their final submission for the regional stormwater plan. So those caucuses will be back-to-back next week. And that is open to the public. There is an opening on the Ethics Board. Dr. Matthew Meyer informed council that he had to resign from the board. Mr. Voldenberg will run an advertisement in the newspaper this week. Please submit your letters of interest and resumes to City Council by emailing Frank Voldenberg, our city clerk, at fvoldenberg, FVOLDENBERG, at scrantonpa.gov, or mail it to 340 North Washington Avenue, Scranton 18503. Those letters of interest and resumes must be in by next Wednesday, September 29th at 4 p.m., and then we'll make a decision within the next week or two after that. Just a reminder that masks are required if you are attending the council meetings and you're speaking at the meetings. Please do not take your mask down even when speaking. If you are ill or not feeling well, please stay home. Also, when speaking, please try to speak about agenda items and things that would pertain to anything at all related to the city. Mr. Voldenberg?
Fourth order, citizens' participation.
Thank you. The first speaker tonight is Joan Hodowanitz.
Joan Hodowanitz, Scranton. So what's the word on the audit?
Same as last week, unfortunately. It's in process. They are exchanging information between the audit company, Kohansky, and the city. And Kyle, did
I know they were in Thursday last week to go over the 1 or 2 missing pieces, and once they figured those out, that we would be getting it.
Okay. I checked the city's website earlier today, and the basic collective bargaining agreement for the firefighters still has not been posted. This would be a document that covers the period 2008 through 2021. What they've posted is the 2018 amendment to that agreement. Now, if in fact the labor contract is going to expire at the end of this year, I'm assuming that the city is in the process of negotiating a new contract with the union, and that will come up in legislation before the end of the year. Unless you have that basic document, and I'm not aware of that, I don't see how you're going to do your due diligence as legislators when that legislation comes before you, because all you're going to be looking at is at the duty descriptions and the IME physicians list and a few other details of that nature that they added in 2018. So, been asking for this since June, and hopefully it'll get posted. I don't know if IT doesn't understand, and they say, oh, we got it on the website since July, but they're not reading what they're posting. So I can just keep asking week after week, kind of like my God give me the audit prayer. Next, I did mention the other week about the minimum municipal obligation for 2021 being $14.9 million. Now, I understand that a lot of budget items can be easily covered by tapping into the ARP funding. But if we didn't have that ARP funding, would the MMO be a problem? Because it's going to continue year after year. So that'd be a question you might want to be looking at as you consider the operating budget for next year. And with regard to the controller's August report, which was in the backup for this week, can you explain the expenditure of $367,994.04 under special items? I could not marry it to the various TANs, so I'd be curious as to where that number popped up. It's got to be a couple items added together. Again, I've asked, when you have these extraordinary figures popping up under nebulous terms like special items, that it should be footnoted or mentioned somewhere. But hopefully that'll change. You mentioned the caucus for next week. Do you have any idea of when we're going to hear about the Serenity Center in a public caucus?
So they got back to us, they're putting together a summary of answers to the questions that we had posed, because we had posed quite a few, and then we're working with Mr. Voldenberg to set up a date, I'm hoping within the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay. How about the promised caucus with the mayor and her administration, her department heads? Any idea when that'll take place?
So I'm going to bring that up again in fifth order, to have Mr. Voldenberg reach out. We are willing to have it on Tuesdays, any day of the week, and at any time, I think 5 o'clock on. But I believe that that is of great importance, so it will get done.
Okay. I would recommend you might want to consider a caucus with OECD for them to give you a summary of their various loans and everything else, so that's made clear to the public also. That would be a great caucus. And when are they going to finish the pocket park on the corner of Linden and Wyoming? Some days they're working on it, most days they're not. Obviously, it's not going to be finished this year.
Yeah, we can reach out to Leslie Collins from Scranton tomorrow,
Yeah,
who's
'cause
heading that project. And
That's an outstanding capital budget project. Okay, and I'd love to get a memo on how to change the home rule charter. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. There's no one else that has signed in to speak tonight. Would anyone from the public that's here like to address council?
Tom Coyne, Manuka. Before council, there was some discussion on what was exactly involved with the landfill and fees involved in it. I took a look at my document just for clarification, and the contract between the city and the landfill locked in a $43.25 per ton tipping fee, and that is locked in for perpetuity. Originally, it was set for a specific number of years, but the city had the ability to continue it onwards at that locked-in price automatically, and that was based upon the capacity of the landfill. As long as the landfill had capacity, that tipping fee would be locked in place. So $43.25 is the tipping fee. As for the agreement for equipment, there was $100,000 a year set aside as the donation from the landfill to the city of Scranton. There is a precedent set forward due to the start of the agreement. The funds were basically held for 2 years and passed forward, and the initial grant that was on the paperwork file was $300,000, which shows that it does roll over and continue. And when they originally came to that agreement, they actually took 2 prior years and added it together. The terms of that was, it was set for any equipment necessary for the health and safety of the city residents. It's broad. It can cover anything from vehicles, and considering it's equipment for safety, it could even go as far as equipment at Naog Park, or it could go for salt for the city's trucks if you needed to buy salt and have it put in for them, since it would fall under the safety and health of the citizens. I'd like to take a moment to note that COVID-19 deaths in the U.S. have now exceeded the 1918 pandemic. There's been a lot of debate on how bad this has been, whether or not it was as bad as the flu, whether or not it was going to be over when the sunshine came out in April of the year where it originally came to the U.S. We've hit a milestone where we've crossed over into the largest pandemic that has caused deaths in the United States. It is a sad point in history, but it's a poignant one to remember how diligent it is to take care of yourself and your family and to take care of others, because this is a pandemic that has killed a massive amount of people. Even though we are getting desensitized to it because of constant bombardment, it is still taken on a massive toll. I understand that there was information put forward on a request for fentanyl test strips to be used. And I understand there's going to be some discussion on this later. Usually, when a police department is instructed, they do it under the ability to, for leeway and not to prosecute crimes. The federal government has done, the states have done this before with marijuana, where the federal government has made it prosecutable and illegal, but the executive branch has pushed down an order saying that we wish for our police not to enforce that regulation. That is strictly the authority of the police department, based upon the executive, to offer leeway in what they choose to prosecute. I believe that is correct, that these safety measures are a good idea, but we have to take the steps responsible, and that is done by executive edict, not by anything else, because there is no authority to override. That's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Marie Schumacher. I'd like to start off too with the someday to be pocket park downtown. I couldn't help but notice a humongous concrete slab in the on the Linden Street side, and it was my understanding from former county employee who headed up the funding for the cleanup, that it was to be totally cleaned up. Now, seeing that concrete slab makes me curious about whether or not it is still partially contaminated. And I couldn't help but wonder the other day when they said the federal building had a gas leak and they had to be, people had to go outside for a while, if the work on that pocket park was what had anything to do with that. Does anybody know?
I do not.
Okay. Isn't it about time that Scranton Tomorrow comes up to, I thought they came every...
Yeah, they usually come quarterly. I believe they'll be coming soon.
Okay, thank you. And I would like to know about that contamination. Regarding the capital budget, there are other things, but I'm concerned about all of this money that is being, or all the funding that's being drawn from the recovery plan, or I guess no, it's a rescue plan, I believe, because without, and I really very strongly believe you guys have to do something with the mayor. You have to have a public hearing and prioritize what projects get that money. Because if it's first come, first served, that's not right. I mean, I believe number one should be the stormwater personally, and I think there'll be a lot of other people, especially from East Mountain and Kaiser Valley, and that would feel that way too. But I really hope you push for that before the budget comes out. And then, who are the program managers? The budget, the capital budget also said they started last year with having program managers for every highlighted program. Do we have any identification of by name, who the project managers are?
I believe, well, no, there's one project manager that was included in the 2021 budget. So the city hired a project manager. I can't think of her name off the top of my head, but there is one designated person now that works, I think out of the business administrator's office to manage a lot of these projects.
Oh, so it's one person for all projects, okay.
Well, not for all of them, but I think for many of them. The problem in the past was that there was projects, for example, in DPW in years past that were falling through the cracks because there wasn't one person that was kind of coordinating everything.
Okay, well, I guess when the budget comes out, we'll find out. Also, just out of curiosity, does the LIPS program still exist, or is it now code enforcement? And if not, what is the split as far as job duties and the number of employees?
What program do you mean? The department?
The department, the LIPS department, is
Sure.
it LIPS or is it code enforcement?
Yeah, they changed the title of it, but nothing really changed within the department. I think they gave more responsibility to Eileen Cipriani. Years ago, LIPS fell under the umbrella of the Office of Economic and Community Development, so I think they took it back to what it used to be, but not much has changed there.
Okay, and can you tell me if the, if the Human Resources Department has completed the job descriptions of all employees, or all employee categories?
Sure, we can check. They should have, but we could check.
Mr. McAndrew is shaking his head no?
I don't believe that as of yet.
Do we know what percent are done? And are they prioritized by the numbers of people?
Yeah, we don't know, but we can check.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, again, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night. Next speaker?
Good evening, Council. Dave Dobson, resident, taxpayer in Scranton. Okay, my number one is already taken care of. We now are represented by the police force at our council meetings, so I mentioned that off the cuff last week, and I'm glad to see that they're here. There's a correction on something I said last week. It's Colfax Avenue that the Geisinger is interested in. And if you need information on it, our former mayor, or interim mayor, Wayne Evans' company is handling the sales proposals of the houses on Colfax Avenue, Evans Real Estate. So I'm not trying to make a federal crime about it, but we constantly we hear it outside the valley, we hear it from people in the Scranton Times, in the letters to the editor, all about how us dimwits can't handle our city and pay for our city services. And excuse me, but we were at 36%, and those are upscale houses. So it's about time that the state starts to kick in, because we are benefiting everybody by having those institutions here. If you get a heart attack in Clark Summit or Waverly, you're headed to Geisinger or the other one, and they are a for-profit hospital. So, that being the case, we were denied $40 million a year for a school district. And it can't keep going on. It started during the Corbett administration, and it just can't keep going on. Once again, on COVID, which we have enough patience for that, it is a city issue. Unattended gunshot wounds, heart attacks, accidents. One heart attack in Texas sent to 6 different hospitals in an ambulance. Another one was sent from Alabama to 43 hospitals were called before he was finally accepted out of state. Now this has to do with getting vaccinated and wearing your mask. And 3 anti-vax radio hosts passed away, spreading all this. And their family has reversed, please get vaccinated. We lost the guy, and he didn't see the good sense. And recently, today, a person from Iowa who was double vaccinated passed away because he was an artist or something, and he threw an art display, and 12 or 14 people came unvaccinated, no masks, and he caught COVID after he was fully vaccinated and passed away. His wife also caught COVID. She survived. She didn't have as many co-problems as him. And on the voting, we have Mr. Corman, senior man in the Republican Senate in Pennsylvania, asking for your driver's license numbers, asking for social security information, asking for addresses and everything else, and apparently he plans to turn it over to more of the frauded people. So, you know, we're not an island here. And what people do from outside do affect us. And it's entirely ridiculous. It's ungodly, the amount of information they're asking just because you voted in the last election. And that goes for you people out in TV land too, because, you know, 99.99999% of people vote honestly. A few people cheat, and it never, ever, ever affects the election outcome. It's just a few people insist on being a jerk. Well, hopefully when they get caught, they'll wind up in the hoosegow. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good night. Would anyone else like to address council this evening?
Good afternoon, Council. Darwin Shaw, resident of Scranton, Pennsylvania, address 615 Beach Street. Today I would like to talk about the resolution that the mayor is trying to legalize fentanyl test strips. Anybody that is from Scranton, especially in the 90s and the 2000s, Scranton was hit with a big opioid epidemic, including crack cocaine and a lot of other drugs that almost destroyed our city. So to legalize beyond, we'll say, controlled substance, what is an easy way for a person who is addicted to that type of opioid to get from a doctor and not be criminalized for that aspect, but say you can get caught with a pack of cigars or anything else and be charged with it, for you to get not charged with a fentanyl strip where you could break it down and actually use it. And that is not helping anybody kick any type of drug or anything. What I would like to see council honestly sit down with the mayor and talk about if they can sit and establish something with mental health, help an individual mentally kick that drug and give them the proper support they need instead of just putting a Band-Aid on it and say, we'll decriminalize this. If you get caught with it and you use it or break it down or anything, we will just give you a slap on the wrist. That's not going to fix the problem. It's gonna bring Scranton back into a dark time that every individual, including you guys, fought very hard to get us where we are today. And then also I would like to thank everybody, including Mr. Gaughan, for sending the proper delegation, the proper resolution to the proper committee for looking at Leech Creek and Ledges Creek and the flooding. And also I would like to know if somebody can please pinpoint what pipes are eroded or what pipes keep exploding due to gas and water leaks, especially in North Side, and help the individuals whose basement gets flooded from, you say, rain or anything like that, because it is an astronomical amount of money to replace a furnace or anything like that. And that's all.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Voldenberg?
Fifth order, 5A motions.
Councilman Schuster, any motions or comments tonight?
So just one comment, I guess. I'm happy to see that the administration is going to be able to attend caucus next Tuesday at 5 p.m. to discuss Meadowbrook. I think we'll get a lot of answers that we've been waiting for some time there. And I'd also like to thank Ms. Brianni. There were two properties. One was 736 Prescott Ave, I believe. There was a hearing today at Magistrate Hailstone's office. I didn't get the results of that, but happy to get the update there, as well as the property on Dorothy Street. So thanks, Ms. Cipriani, and thanks, Mr. Voldenberg. That's all.
Thank you. Councilman McAndrew, any motions or comments?
I have a couple. So the first one is from friends over in Greenridge, so. I'm sorry about that. So the first one I have is from our friends over in Greenridge. They have an issue with stop signs at Wyoming and Woodlawn. They're saying they're being ignored. So they would like to see if we could place a second sign on the other side of the street so the signs can be seen if one is obstructed. So if Mr. Voldenberg, you could look into that. Let's see. So this should be done going up and down same intersection. Third complaint. They've had a third complaint about speeding and parking on Fisk Street. Please make sure the demolition of the garage happens quickly over in Wyoming Avenue. So I know we're going to talk about that when it comes to the Meadowbrook, which is next week, which is good. All right, secondly, I think we all got this email, but I don't know if someone else is going to bring it up, but this property is on Clearview Street. 1836 is the most specific problem, but the two properties next to it are just as bad. They say that the hedges are 8 to 10 feet tall. They completely obstruct the sidewalk, and also 3 to 4 feet into West Pass. So the children walking to school are forced into the busy streets. The other property is 1835 Bundy Street. That grass is 4 feet, loose garbage, dog feces, rodents. So, Mr. Voldenberg, I will send you this. That's just a little synopsis of this issue. This I will forward to you so you can send it to the proper departments. I have another question, and this was posed to me by a resident, and he lives on Landis Street. It's 635 Landis Street. So he at one point had a blacktop curb in front of his house. And I think it was done during the paving process. I'm not sure when it was, what year, when it was done, but his concern is that DPW over the past 2 years during the winter plowing removed that curb. So I don't know if in the past they're replaced because of that. I don't know what the process or protocol is for that. So if you could please send correspondence for that. All right. So last week I made a motion. So this is week 3. I'm asking for information regarding the separation or the divorce from NRS, which was the previous company that collected for the city, and were involved in the pay-to-play and identified by the FBI. So as co-conspirators. So we met a couple times, again, like I mentioned last week. We met in September, then we met in June. And there was the separation from this company. They wanted, they wanted some money. So, I was against it. So, last week, our solicitor, Hayes, said I did an official request, and he requested if you could please report out at what the update is that we asked for.
And I did send a request to the law department requesting the status of the city's relationship with NRS and whether any additional payments have been made to NRS since January of 2020. And if so, how much and when were they made? And what's the status of winding down the relationship with NRS? So I did put that request out.
So you haven't heard anything yet?
No, this law department did report that payments have been made to NRS. Those payments, they indicated, were for fees and costs advanced by NRS on its specific accounts. They did not have the specific amount or the dates that they made those payments, but that they would provide that information to me. And that no final agreement had been entered in terms of severing the relationship between the city and NRS.
All right, so can I follow up one more time?
Sure.
So I would like right now, since they're being paid, and I didn't think they were going to be paid because we didn't agree to that separation. Now they're just paying them, I don't know, maybe monthly, I don't understand. So I would like to request, as follow-up, a copy of any and all vouchers executed in the past year for NRS. And I want this correspondence sent to the city controller, the law department, and the business administrator. Thank you, that is all I have.
Thank you, Dr. Rothchild. Any motions or comments tonight?
Yes, just one. I feel like I've sent quite a few this week already to Mr. Voldenberg, some other complaints to be sent to departments, but one I believe I failed to mention that we'd received complaints of is 1805 North Washington Avenue in Greenridge. It's a condemned property, and the neighbors over in Greenridge are asking for an update on what's going on with the property. There's been issues with rodents coming from there, so if we could request an update, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Donahue, any motions or comments tonight?
Yes, just to touch on what Dr. Rothchild mentioned about the address at Washington Avenue. I did drive by there today, and they were cutting grass and cleaning up that. I mean, there's still some structural issues there, but I did see that today. Just to touch on some of the citizen participation comments, Ms. Honowanitz brought up the CBAs. I know personally I won't even introduce a CBA unless the original is attached to that legislation, so there could be some comparisons, but I have agreed with you in the past, and I continue to agree with you that those originals should be on the website, so we will follow up with the firefighter one again this week. I did meant to put together an explanation on the MMOs for you this week. I'm sorry I didn't get to that. I will have that for you next week. And Ms. Schumacher's comments regarding the capital budget, we still have very vague guidelines in terms of how the ARP money could be spent, so that's why some of that's in there. And another moving part to that is any federal legislation as it relates to infrastructure that may or may not be passed, and how that affects our capital budget moving forward. Also, I haven't had access to my city email for the past few weeks, so I've been working with IT to get the issue fixed. So if anyone's emailed me, I apologize that I haven't gotten back to you. I'm hoping to get that fixed this week at the latest, by the end of this week at the latest. A couple DPW requests I'd like to follow up on. Fire Street, a speed sign on the 1500 block of Fire Street has been spray painted to the point it is confusing to distinguish if the speed limit is 25 or 35. If we could have DPW go out and take a look at that. And then also the condition of the 2000 block of Lavelle Court. I got some complaints from residents, especially with some of the storms we got, that the road really has, or the alley really has washed out there. Mr. Voldenberg, could we also send correspondence to the police department? Back in July, we sent correspondence requesting them to look into a four-way stop sign at Kapowska Walnut. I know they have put up one of those speed readers that gathers data on the speed of every car that passes through. So could you just check and see if they have any update, or if they've gathered enough data to make any determination on that one?
I'll follow up.
Thank you. And then also, we did get a LIPS update today regarding the property on the 1600 block of South Webster Avenue. I believe it's 1602. It's at the corner of South Webster and Palm Street, that had the tires piled up in the back. The Licensing Inspections Department is working on injunction on this property through zoning, Don King and Joe O'Brien. Also trying both DPW and DEP action with fire department. Cars and site quality of life issues worked out without citation based on weekly visits to site. The tires do remain an issue, but stored away from the building and less than 2,000 and piled under 6 feet tall, avoiding SFD signs. We also got an update that on September 9th, 2021, they spoke with the DEP regional representative in regards to this property, and they were forwarding the complaint to the solid waste inspector and the West Nile inspector. She was also advised that this is an ongoing issue with the property and that the property is situated in a residential neighborhood. So Mr. Voldenberg, would we be able to just ask them for continuous updates on that property? Also, in terms of 3 properties I brought up in the past that I'd like an update on, one's 539 Gibbon Street, 524 Gibbon Street, the front and the rear, 2208 Prospect Avenue. I've also been made aware of issues regarding zoning on the 1200 block of Oliver Court over on West Side by the high school. This was a property in the past where the property was torn down. Now a business has bought that property and is using it to park cars on that property that's not properly zoned for that. And another issue that was brought to my attention, on the 600 block of Hemlock Street, there's an RV in the driveway and there's extension cords coming out being plugged into the RV. So could we just have them look into that and see if there's any issues with that? I wouldn't imagine that's kosher, but we'll see. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Donahue. I have a few comments tonight. The first is kind of to piggyback up off of the comments made last week regarding the SAFER grant. So last week it was announced that the city was being awarded $2.6 million funding through the Federal Emergency Management Agency staffing for adequate fire and emergency response grant program, and that was announced by Congressman Matt Cartwright. And that funding would allow Scranton to cover the salary and benefits of 10 new firefighters in addition to the complement that we already have of 135 for 3 years. So I think everyone on council was surprised to read that article and that announcement in the newspaper. So when that happened, I immediately had sent an email to Mayor Cognetti and the business administrator, Larry West, expressing my concerns and the questions that I had in terms of how we would be able to continue to pay for that once the grant ran out, and if we did not get an additional grant in year 4 and year 5. I had requested the SAFER grant application to take a look at it, and I did receive that and went through it. One of the first things that's stuck out to me is that if the city were to accept this grant, in year 4, it would cost the city over $1 million with the 10 additional firemen. In year 5, it would cost the city $1.2 million. Year 4, $780,000 in salaries and $310,000 in benefits. Year 5, $890,000 in salaries and $320,000 in benefits. So my initial concerns about how we would pay for that, I think, were validated by the fact that those are very, very large amounts of money. One of the things that I was very surprised by was an article that ran in the Scranton Times basically stating that the mayor and the business administrator were also concerned. They shared the same concerns as city council. The business administrator was quoted as saying, "The administration will be looking at where and if we can utilize that grant and how we can use it effectively. And whether the city ultimately uses the grant for that purpose remains to be seen." The original article with the fire chief, Chief Judge, made it seem like the grant was already going to be accepted and those 10 firemen were going to be hired almost immediately. So when I requested the grant and I had the opportunity to go through it, I was very surprised by what I found within the application. One of the questions that is asked within this grant application is very simple. It states, "Is it your department's intent to sustain the awarded positions after the completion of the period of performance?" The city of Scranton replied, "Yes." This is very concerning. How could the mayor and the business administrator and the fire chief submit an application and clearly state to the federal government that yes, it was in fact their intent to sustain the awarded positions after the completion of the period of performance, which would have been 3 years, and then turn around and say, geez, we share the same concerns as council. We're not sure what we're going to do with it yet. There's two conflicting things going on here. They're saying one thing in the application, and then they're turning around and saying another thing to the newspaper and to city council. That's very concerning. So I would like to ask a follow-up question. Who submitted this grant? Was it the city of Scranton through the mayor and the business administrator? Did they sign off on this? If they did, that's concerning. If they did not, and it was submitted just by the fire department and Chief Judge without the mayor and Mr. West approval or acknowledgement, that is also concerning. I've never seen that done before. Also, I would like to know why City Council is not involved in this process. In my tenure here, every time the city submits a grant, we approve it. We approve the submission and the acceptance of that grant. So I would like to know the answers to those questions. Also, another thing within the grant, it says, please provide a brief description on how the positions will be sustained. One of the things it states in here is that the city is in the process of implementing a fire-based EMS system that will potentially yield revenue as a result of this endeavor. The city will be able to use this revenue stream to help sustain the positions awarded under the SAFER grant. I am not aware of the ability to bill for fire-based EMS beyond the actual costs, and how could this be considered a funding stream? I have never even heard that we were considering that, and it's never, to my knowledge, it's never been discussed with council as a whole, and it definitely has not been discussed with me. And again, for the mayor and the business administrator to make the public think and council think that they are also concerned about this and they're not yet sure how to use it, and then to look at the grant application and see that there had to be some rationale and thought put into this, does not make sense to me at all. The other thing it states in here is that the city has now developed a plan to emerge from financial distress and requires SAFER funds to assist with its long-range plans. SAFER funds, as everyone knows, are not guaranteed. I reached out to the recovery coordinator, Jerry Cross from the Pennsylvania Economy League, and he stated, if you look in the recovery plan, it recommends the city maintain an employee complement at the 2020 number and through 2021. That recommendation is based on the financial projections in the plan that uses the 2020 count of employees. So we would be getting way far off the ball in terms of our recovery plan. There's also details in here regarding four-man crews. We need more, I think, more information on whether or not that is going to increase overtime. There's also a section here regarding, it says the requested positions will ensure this company will remain staffed. Does this mean the city will not be able to brown out companies if needed, as it's done in the past? There are quite a few things in here that are concerning and would lead me to believe that either the mayor and the business administrator did not know that this grant was going out, or they did, and they didn't care enough until council spoke up and said, wait a minute, this is concerning, to then turn around and say, oh, we have concerns too. Doesn't not make a lick of sense. So I would like to know the answers to the questions I pose and get to the bottom of it. And by the way, I don't believe you get to decide how you use this. In other words, Congressman Cartwright doesn't just stand up there and announce that we get $2.3 million and then we say, oh, geez, maybe we'll use it for this or that. We stated very clearly in the application what we were going to use it for, to hire 10 firemen and to keep that complement of firemen on. And there was a narrative in there that said how we were going to do that. So it does not make sense, and I think it should have been thought out prior to the submission of the grant, and City Council should have been included in those conversations. We could have avoided the announcement by a congressman that we received those funds. Also, it was the Serenity Center was brought up tonight, and of course we've asked questions on this several times now, and Mr. Voldenberg is in touch with members of the administration, and hopefully we will get a caucus very soon in answers to our questions. Also, we've asked several times now about the meetings with department heads. The mayor has graciously agreed to this. We both think that it's good government. So, Mr. Voldenberg, if you can continue to reach out to them and schedule these caucuses. We are willing to meet. Doesn't have to be Tuesdays. It can be any day of the week. We'll coordinate it with the rest of council, and we can certainly do it before 6:30 p.m. Also, I asked last week about the plan for the 2022 budget process. Council has still not been brought in on this process. I'm hoping that that will occur very soon. The draft budget has to go to Pell in the middle of October. Also, and I think most of us were aware of this, and I can't remember if we got an answer on this the last time we asked, but members of the administration have cell phones that are paid for by the city. I would like to know, Mr. Voldenberg, how much we are paying for these a month, and what account does this come out of the general budget? And the last thing I'll mention tonight, is everyone is aware that we have a very serious pandemic going on. And one of the things that council had requested of the mayor was back in July to ask the mayor to consider mandating vaccines for city employees. And when we raised that matter, and I raised that matter back in July, the mayor stated that she was considering requiring any employee who chooses not to submit a proof of vaccination to get tested on a regular basis. We have not heard any update on this. So, Mr. Voldenberg, I'd like you to reach out to the administration and see what the status is on this. I personally believe now, with the seriousness of the Delta variant, that we need to find a way to mandate the vaccine immediately for all city employees, the police department, fire department, clerical union, DPW. This is in the interest of the employee, and it's also in the interest of the people in the public that they interact with sometimes on a daily basis. So I do think that if there is a way that we can mandate this, the mayor should do it immediately, because that is being done throughout the federal government and in other places around the country. As of June, according to the Scranton Times article, only 69% of police officers in the city were fully vaccinated. I'd like to know what the percentage is now, Mr. Voldenberg, and if we have a percentage on the fire department, the DPW, the clerical union, all city employees. If you're unvaccinated, you are putting people's lives at risk, period. And I think that with the public comes in this building all the time, and we need to make sure that every city employee is vaccinated, and the mayor should mandate that immediately if we can do that. And that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
5B for introduction, an ordinance amending file of the council number 65, 2021, an ordinance entitled authorizing the mayor and other appropriate officials of the city of Scranton to take all necessary actions to implement the HUD 2021 Annual Action Plan for community planning and development programs to be funded under the Community Development Block Grant Program, Home Investment Partnership Program, and Emergency Solutions Grants Program for the period beginning January 1st, 2021, by amending the 2021 Action Plan to add $350,000 under the Community Development Block Grant Revolving Loan Fund to assist new and existing businesses within the city of Scranton through the Business Loan to Grant Program previously allocated to Boys and Girls Club Park It Program.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5B be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? On the question, I have several questions about this legislation. In a minute, Dr. Rothchild will make a motion to table it because there's a 30-day comment period that's required by the by HUD. But I have 6 questions. How much money is currently in the revolving loan fund, minus the $350,000? I'd like a list of all the OECD loans, how much money is outstanding. A history of the business loan to grant program, including a list of the businesses that have received loan to grants and the amount. How much money is currently in that program? How does OECD intend to target businesses throughout the city? They have said that they've received a lot of interest from whom? And most importantly, what happens with the Boys and Girls Club Park It program now? Were they notified, and what will happen to that program? Will that be a loss for them? And that's all I have. Anyone else on the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
I'd like to make a motion to table item 5B.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor and a second to table item 5B. This ordinance amends the HUD 2021 Annual Action Plan. This piece of legislation will be tabled for 30 days in order to allow for public comment. On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5C for introduction, an ordinance implementing policy regarding the possession and/or distribution of fentanyl test strips for the harm reduction purposes.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5C be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved?
Second.
Second?
On the question? On the question, in a second, I'll make a motion to table this agenda item. Well, actually, let me make the motion now, and then I'll explain why. I'd like to make a motion to table agenda item 5C.
Second.
There's a motion to table agenda item 5C. On the question? On the question, I had spoken earlier to Solicitor Hayes and raised a few concerns about this piece of legislation. My initial concern is how this can actually be permitted, as this contradicts a state ordinance. I'll ask Solicitor Hayes in a second to explain, but my original concern was simply that the state has a law that limits or bans the possession and distribution of fentanyl strips in the state of Pennsylvania. This ordinance is effectively going against that. So how does how can we do that? How can we legally do that, number one? And then number two, the mayor essentially within this ordinance, which there's a question of whether or not this even should be an ordinance, is essentially changing a policy within the police department. And this is not something that we would typically vote on as an ordinance. There's policy changes all the time in City Hall. For example, the mayor changes a policy for workers to come in at 8 a.m. rather than 7 p.m. or 7 a.m. rather. We don't vote on that. We don't vote on every policy change. But the biggest concern of mine is, are we violating or contradicting rather an ordinance and a law that's already on the books in the state? Solicitor Hayes, do you want to add to that?
Sure. The legislation that was proposed by the law department and the administration essentially states that the police department would not arrest individuals for possessing or distributing fentanyl test strips. Fentanyl test strips are considered drug paraphernalia under the Controlled Substance, Drug, Device, and Cosmetic Act, which is a state statute. And that statute says basically that local ordinance cannot contradict an implied objective of that state act. So in other words, we can't adopt legislation which contradicts the state law, and this ordinance would effectively do that. So I have to work with the law department to understand what the objective is here and to see if there's a better means to achieve what the mayor is trying to what she's trying to do here, and we all agree is a meritorious effort to try to address the opioid issue. But I think that an ordinance which effectively says that we won't arrest individuals who are essentially violating a state statute is not something we want to do here.
Thank you, Solicitor Hayes. And as I've stated previously, I do agree with the policy regarding not arresting people for the possession and or distribution of fentanyl test strips, but we need to make sure that we're doing things procedurally correct. We would not want to set a precedent here. As I've stated publicly before, I think if one life is saved by this measure, then it would be, the whole thing would be worth it. However, again, council cannot do things that are not procedurally correct. Anyone else on the question?
Yeah, I stated earlier, I understand the two cities in the Commonwealth have already accomplished this by just a policy change. So if that's the case, why are we even entertaining, presenting it as an ordinance? So that's concerning to me.
Anyone else on the question? All those in favor of tabling agenda item 5C signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and 5C is officially tabled.
5D for introduction, an ordinance creating and establishing special city account number as noted entitled Public Health Coordination for the receipt of and disbursement of grant monies from the Moses Taylor Foundation for payment of the new public health coordinator position for the city of Scranton.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5D be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second?
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5E for introduction, a resolution ratifying and approving the execution and submission of the grant application by the City of Scranton on behalf of the Scranton Cultural Center at the Masonic Temple to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, acting through the Commonwealth Financing Authority for a local share account grant pursuant to the PA Racehorse Development and Gaming Act in the amount of $272,000 for the project to be known as Building Preservation and Safety, located at 420 North Washington Avenue, Scranton, Pennsylvania, and authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials of the City of Scranton, Pennsylvania, to accept the grant if successful, and execute and enter into a local share account grant contract and commitment letter with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to accept and utilize the grant in the amount of $272,000 awarded by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for such project.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5E be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second?
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5F for introduction, a resolution accepting an anonymous donation in the amount of $100 to the Scranton Fire Department to be placed in the special city account number as noted, SFD donation account.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5F be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second?
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5G for introduction, a resolution authorizing the acceptance by the City of Scranton by Keystone Sanitary Landfill of an A 2021 Valley Tool 30X-HD brush mower attachment per Sourcewell contract number as noted from 5-Star Equipment.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5G be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second?
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5H for introduction, a resolution, reappointment of David E. Falchek, 1705 Church Avenue, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 18508, as a member of the Board of Ethics effective September 1st, 2021. Mr. Falchek will be appointed to a 2-year term scheduled to expire on August 31st, 2023.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5G be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second?
On the question?
On the question, I'd like to amend this piece of legislation for it to read, 3-year term scheduled to expire on August 31st, 2024. When we first reestablished the Ethics Board, with the appointment of board members, we did staggering terms, and then each one was supposed to be 3 years after that, so we just missed that in this legislation, so that this amendment would just put in what should have been in there in the first place.
Okay. Could you?
I think I didn't.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. There's a motion on the floor and a second. On the question? Can you just restate that for the record, Kyle? I'm sorry.
So when we first reestablished the Ethics Board, each appointee was supposed to be a 3-year term, but the first term was supposed to be staggered so that there were new members appointed every year. So it should read that it should be a 3-year term scheduled to expire on August 31st, 2024.
Got it. Anyone else on the question? All those in favor of the motion to amend agenda item 5H signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and agenda item 5H is amended. Anyone else on the question for the original motion?
Yes, on the question, I would just like to thank Mr. Falchek for the work that he's already done on the Board of Ethics, and that we appreciate his interest in being reappointed to the board. I believe we'll have a few spots opening up, as was mentioned earlier in our caucus, and we will be looking for additional members to serve on the Board of Ethics, but I'm glad to see that we won't be losing Mr. Falchek.
Thank you. Anyone else? All those in favor of introduction of agenda item 5H as amended signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
Sixth order, no business at this time. Seventh order, 7A, for consideration by the Committee on Public Works for adoption, file of the Council number 79, 2021, authorizing the City of Scranton to accept payment from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Department of Transportation for 3 rights-of-way and 3 temporary construction easements.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Public Works?
As chairperson for the Committee on Public Works, I recommend final passage of item 7A.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Gaughan?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7A legally and lawfully adopted.
7B for consideration by the Committee on Public Works for adoption, file the Council number 80, 2021, authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into any and all documents necessary to grant H.W. Rover, Inc. a drainage easement to construct, operate, and repair a drainage facility in the vicinity of South Washington Avenue and Stafford Meadow Brook.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Public Works?
As chairperson for the Committee on Public Works, I recommend final passage of item 7B.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Gaughan?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7B legally and lawfully adopted.
7C for consideration by the Committee on Finance for adoption, file of the Council number 81, 2021, approving collection procedures, interest assessment, credit card and debit card charges, and fees and costs to be added to the amount collected as part of the unpaid municipal claims for delinquent accounts.
What is the, what is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Finance?
As the chairperson for the Committee on Finance, I recommend final passage of item 7C.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Gaughan?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7C legally and lawfully adopted.
7D for consideration by the Committee on Public Safety for adoption, file of the Council number 82, 2021, authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into the Lackawanna United Drug Enforcement Team Municipal Drug Task Force Agreement by and among the Lackawanna County District Attorney's Office, Lackawanna United Drug Enforcement Task Force, and the City of Scranton Police Department.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Public Safety?
As chairperson for the Committee on Public Safety, I recommend final passage of item 7D.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Gaughan?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7D legally and lawfully adopted.
7E for consideration by the Committee on Community Development for adoption, resolution number 210, 2021, ratifying and approving of the execution and submission of the grant application by the City of Scranton on behalf of the University of Scranton to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, acting through the Commonwealth Financing Authority for a local share account grant pursuant to the Pennsylvania Racehorse Development and Gaming Act in the amount of $412,956 for the project to be known as U of S Cyber Forensics and Cyber Security Lab Equipment, located at 800 Linden Street, Scranton, Pennsylvania, and authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials of the City of Scranton, Pennsylvania, to accept the grant if successful and execute and enter into a local share account grant contract and commitment letter with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to accept and utilize the grant in the amount of $412,956 awarded by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for such project.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Community Development?
As chairperson for the Committee on Community Development, I recommend final passage of item 7E.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Gaughan?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7E legally and lawfully adopted.
7F for consideration by the Committee on Community Development for adoption, resolution number 211, 2021, ratifying and approving of the execution and submission of the grant application by the City of Scranton on behalf of the Scranton Public Library to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, acting through the Commonwealth Financing Authority for a local share account grant pursuant to the Pennsylvania Racehorse Development and Gaming Act in the amount of $262,500 for the project to be known as roof repairs at Albright Memorial Library, located at 500 Vine Street, Scranton, Pennsylvania, and authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials of the City of Scranton, Pennsylvania, to accept the grant if successful, and execute and enter into a local share account grant contract and commitment letter with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to accept and utilize the grant in the amount of $262,500 awarded by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for such project.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Community Development?
As chairperson for the Committee on Community Development, I recommend final passage of item 7F.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Gaughan?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7F legally and lawfully adopted.
7G for consideration by the Committee on Community Development for adoption, Resolution Number 212, 2021, ratifying and approving of the execution and submission of the grant application by the City of Scranton in partnership with the Scranton Municipal Recreation Authority to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, acting through the Commonwealth Financing Authority for a local share account grant pursuant to the Pennsylvania Racehorse Development and Gaming Act in the amount of up to $300,000 for the project to be known as Naog Park All-Inclusive Playground for Adults and Children, located at Naog Park, Scranton, Pennsylvania, and authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials of the City of Scranton, Pennsylvania, to accept the grant if successful, and execute and enter into a local share account grant contract and commitment letter with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to accept and utilize the grant in the amount of up to $300,000 awarded by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for such project.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Community Development?
As chairperson for the Committee on Community Development, I recommend final passage of item 7G.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Gaughan?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7G legally and lawfully adopted.
7H for consideration by the Committee on Community Development for adoption, Resolution Number 213, 2021, ratifying and approving of the execution and submission of the grant application by the City of Scranton on behalf of NeighborWorks Northeastern Pennsylvania to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, acting through the Commonwealth Financing Authority for a local share account grant pursuant to the Pennsylvania Racehorse Development and Gaming Act in the amount of $25,725 for the project to be known as NWNEPA Feasibility Study for Luzerne Street Blighted Properties, located at Luzerne Street, Scranton, Pennsylvania, and authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials of the City of Scranton, Pennsylvania, to accept the grant if successful, and execute and enter into a local share account grant contract and commitment letter with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to accept and utilize the grant in the amount of $25,725 awarded by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for such project.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Community Development?
As chairperson for the Committee on Community Development, I recommend final passage of item 7H.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes. Sorry.
Dr. Rothchild?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Gaughan?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7H legally and lawfully adopted.
7I for consideration by the Committee on Community Development for adoption, Resolution Number 214, 2021, ratifying and approving of the execution and submission of the grant application by the City of Scranton to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, acting through the Commonwealth Financing Authority for a local share account grant pursuant to the Pennsylvania Racehorse Development and Gaming Act in the amount up to $50,000 for the project to be known as Preserving and Enhancing Instruments of Communication, located at 340 North Washington Avenue, Scranton, Pennsylvania, and authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials of the city of Scranton, PA, to accept the grant if successful and execute and enter into a local share account grant contract and commitment letter with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to accept and utilize the grant in the amount of up to $50,000 awarded by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for such project.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Community Development?
As chairperson for the Committee on Community Development, I recommend final passage of item 7I.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Gaughan?
Yes. I hereby declare item 7I legally and lawfully adopted.
7J for consideration by the Committee on Community Development for adoption, Resolution Number 215, 2021, ratifying and approving of the execution and submission of the grant application by the City of Scranton on behalf of Wave Enterprises to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, acting through the Commonwealth Financing Authority for a local share account grant pursuant to the Pennsylvania Racehorse Development and Gaming Act in the amount of $71,400 for the project to be known as New Wave Cultural Community Hub Building Renovations, located at 1818 Jackson Street, Scranton, Pennsylvania, and authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials of the City of Scranton, Pennsylvania, to accept the grant if successful, and execute and enter into a local share account grant contract and commitment letter with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to accept and utilize the grant in the amount of $71,400 awarded by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for such project.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Community Development?
As chairperson for the Committee on Community Development, I recommend final passage of item 7J.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Gaughan?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7J legally and lawfully adopted.
7K for consideration by the Committee on Community Development for adoption, Resolution Number 216, 2021, ratifying and approving of the execution and submission of the grant application by the City of Scranton on behalf of Scranton Fringe to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, acting through the Commonwealth Financing Authority for a local share account grant pursuant to the Pennsylvania Racehorse Development and Gaming Act in the amount of $56,091 for the project to be known as Portable Theater Equipment for Inclusion and Accessibility, located in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials of the City of Scranton, PA, to accept the grant if successful and execute and enter into a local share account grant contract and commitment letter with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to accept and utilize the grant in the amount of $56,091 awarded by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for such project.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Community Development?
As chairperson for the Committee on Community Development, I recommend final passage of items 7K.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Gaughan?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7K legally and lawfully adopted.
7L for consideration by the Committee on Community Development for adoption, Resolution Number 217, 2021, ratifying and approving of the execution and submission of the grant application by the City of Scranton on behalf of Black Scranton to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, acting through the Commonwealth Financing Authority for a local share account grant pursuant to the Pennsylvania Racehorse Development and Gaming Act in the amount of $137,559 for the project to be known as Black Scranton Project Recording Studio, located at 1902 North Main Street, Scranton, Pennsylvania, and authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials of the City of Scranton, Pennsylvania, to accept the grant if successful and execute and enter into a local share account grant contract and commitment letter with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to accept and utilize the grant in the amount of $137,559 awarded by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for such project.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Community Development?
As chairperson for the Committee on Community Development, I recommend final passage of item 7L.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Gaughan?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7L legally and lawfully adopted.
7M for consideration by the Committee on Rules for Adoption, Resolution Number 218, 2021, appointment of Catherine Lafferty Danner, 929 North Webster Avenue, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 18510, to serve as a member of the City of Scranton Ethics Board. Catherine Lafferty Danner will be replacing Brad Kovaleski, Ph.D., whose term was set to expire August 31st, 2023.
As chairperson for the Committee on Rules, I recommend final passage of item 7M.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Gaughan?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7M legally and lawfully adopted.
7N for consideration by the Committee on Community Development for Adoption, Resolution Number 219, 2021, accepting the recommendation of the Historic Architectural Review Board, HARB, and denying the certificate of appropriateness for Robert Pollock, 724 Winola Road, Clark Summit, Pennsylvania, 18411, for partial demolition of the Plotkins Shoe Store at 301 Penn Avenue, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 18503.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Community Development?
As chairperson for the Committee on Community Development, I would like to make a motion to table item 7N pending the public hearing that will be held on October 5th, 2021.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor of tabling item 7N signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, so moved. Agenda item 7N is tabled.
7O, previously tabled, for consideration by the Committee on Community Development for Adoption, Resolution Number 202, 2021, ratifying and approving the City of Scranton application for grant funds from the Bureau of Justice Assistant Fiscal Year 2021 Community Policing Development Accreditation Grant in the amount of $74,272 to support the Scranton Police Department to obtain the Pennsylvania Law Enforcement Accreditation Commission accreditation, and authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to accept the grant, coordinate, and disperse the grant funds as appropriate.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Community Development?
As chairperson for the Committee on Community Development, I recommend final passage of item 7O.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Gaughan?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7O legally and lawfully adopted.
8th order, 8A, file of the Council Number 78, 2021, approving and accepting the City of Scranton capital budget for the year 2022 pursuant to Section 904 of the city's Home Rule Charter.
Thank you. This is the capital budget for 2022, and it was tabled until a public hearing was held this evening on this piece of legislation. Next week, there will be a motion to place it in 7th order for a final vote. If there's no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
This meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone.